it's Lynn again, and yes, I'm addicted to mechanical keyboards like every other bitch out there. Last year, I built a very expensive PC. I recently got a new graphics card for it, and even though I don't require a very intense setup for peripherals, since I don't game professionally or competitively, I do play a lot of Stardew Valley on my off time. Love unpacking. I do a lot of essay writing for school. So today, I'll be putting together my very first mechanical keyboard after doing a lot of research, watching a lot of TikToks, because for some reason, I'm on keyboard TikTok. There truly is a niche for everything. And the end goal today is to create a very nice sounding keyboard, and also one that's very colorful and aesthetically pleasing. Whether you are a seasoned veteran at mechanical keyboard building, or you're kind of just like, I don't know what this is, I'm just along for the ride, I'll be breaking down my entire process, including what parts I bought, the functions of each part, how to lube switches, which by the way, if you're not a keyboard person, yes, there'll be excessive lubing today. Lots of hands-on hand jobs. That's the quota for bad innuendos I'm gonna be making in this video. And then we'll assemble it, do a little type test and an overview. And once I fly back to DC, I'll give you an updated desk tour. Without further ado, let's jump on in. Outside of keyboard building, I do have experience lubing up switches, if you know what I mean, but this is gonna be a little different, alright? Depending on what you're looking for in a keyboard, there's 3 types of switches. There's linear, which is very smooth. Tactile has a little bit of resistance, and clicky is the clickiest of them all. So depending on the switch you use, you're gonna lube them differently, because different switches have different needs, just like people. You can buy a switch opener to open your switches, or you can use a baby flathead screwdriver. I actually ended up using a paperclip because the one thing my dad didn't have in his toolbox at home was a baby flathead screwdriver. There are 4 little prongs that you need to wedge open evenly all around. It took me a little bit of time to get used to, but eventually I got really good at the paperclip, y'all. As I was opening them up, I made sure to have a really good organization system because you don't want to lose track of anything. And let's break down the parts of a switch. This is the top housing. It keeps the switch together essentially in the end, and the stem is going to be the part that we're lubing the most, so become besties with it. The spring is pretty self-explanatory. The bottom housing also holds everything together, but it also has the leaf, which has the contact leaves, which connects it to the circuit board. And if you're new to keyboard building and you didn't know that there was going to be so much top bottom switch lingo, trust me, neither did I. We're in the same boat. Alright, what I'm doing here, especially since I have linear switches and the more lube the merrier essentially, I'm putting a little bit of lube in a Ziploc bag, rubbing it around, and then putting all my springs and shaking it up, because theoretically all the lube would evenly disperse onto the springs, and then I don't have to do it by hand, which, trust me, we're gonna do a lot of hand lubing today. The first 3 or 4 switches I lubed, I did different things to see what I thought would sound the best and feel the best for me. At the end of the day, lubing is all up to preference. And this one, I think I really got the right amount of lube all around. So after all these trial runs, I'm going to be combining a bunch of methods I found while researching on YouTube. So we're going to take a dab of lube and then put on even amounts on both slider rails, which are these 2 walls right here adjacent to the leaf. I'm going to brush evenly so you see no residue at all. You should not see clumps. For my preference, I'm skipping lubing the bottom of the bottom housing and just doing the leaves on the side right here, which is where a lot of friction occurs. Despite lubing the springs using the Ziploc method, it was still not lubey enough for me, so I went in with generous amounts of lube on each end of the spring. It's okay if you see some clumps here. After being satisfied by the lubiness, I put it into bottom housing, and then it's time to do the stem. If you're doing tactile or clicky switches, this is where, you know, you want to be really careful. With a good amount of lube, I'm dabbing both sides that have the sliders and then brushing off the excess on the back and front. On the side with the sliders, you want to get every side and every little crevice, and then with linear switches, you don't really have to worry about avoiding the feet. The last parts I lube are the very bottom edges and around the pole and at the tip of the pole. A good tip is that you always want to under lube more than you want to over lube, because you can always add more, can't necessarily take it away. As a beginner, I think I still need a lot of practice, especially with experimenting with different types of switches, but eventually you'll get the rhythm and be able to create a consistent sound across your keyboard. So I got to lubing because I had over 70 switches to get all smooth and lubed up. A lot of people find this part of keyboard builds very tedious and boring, but I actually really love it. I watched many episodes of Avatar. I finished book 2. Prior to starting the keyboard build, I was actually working on this huge paint by the numbers, so you can say I had a lot of experience with working with tiny paintbrushes, tiny strokes, if you know what I mean. I got faster and faster at lubing as I went on, so it ended up only taking me about 3.5 hours to do all 70 switches, and you can say I was pretty happy when I got to my last one. Yay! And while we're making our very own custom keycaps out of clay, I'd like to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is still the best online learning community I've been a part of, offering thousands of classes for creative and curious people to explore new skills and develop existing and new passions. There's topics on animation, digital art, illustration, productivity, and much more. I am finally finishing up my classes with Victo Nai, who teaches Mastering Color, Simple Steps to Create Vivid Art. Being able to take my own pace during these classes has been the best. The amount I've learned about color theory is astounding. Skillshare is built for learning, meaning there are no ads, and they are always launching premium classes so you can stay in tune and follow where your creativity takes you. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can start your creative and learning journey today. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Once you're done lubing the switches, you're kind of close to being done with the build. So I'm disassembling my case and then laying out all the components. It has the case PCB, which stands for printed circuit board, and the plate. But before we jump on into the rest of the mods, let's talk about the difference between soldered PCB and hot swap. Soldered PCBs require soldering. You guessed it. It allows for a lot more customization and layouts, and it's fun if you're an experienced keyboard builder because it adds a little bit of challenge. But it's safe to say that I am a noob, so I started out with a hot swap. It's really easy to work with, and it's a little bit cheaper as well. I wanted to be able to switch out my switches for tactile ones, clicky ones in the future. I got mine from Amazon, and they came with stabilizers that you snap in, but let's just say we ran into a little bit of a surprise, which we will cover later. One of the last mods we're gonna do is lubing the stabilizers, or commonly referred to as stabs. You can also get screw-in ones that come in different color variations. I just used the ones that came with my board because I didn't want to spend more money than I had to. I'm using a little baby screwdriver to snap them out, which is really easy. To separate all the components, you kind of just twist it at 90 degrees and it pops out, but when mine popped out, I realized they came pre-lubed and not lubed well. Look at those clumps. Oh my goodness. I decided that the best course of action was just to wipe off the lube and do my best to clean it up. As you can see, look at the stem. Oh my goodness, it's so messy and it's not a good job. Besides trying to evenly coat everything and wipe out excess lube, I'm trimming off the feet. The bit of plastic that you see right here that sticks out is the feet, and it actually creates more noise, so if you trim it and have this even flat surface, it makes for a very nice stabilizer. If you're using gardening shears like me and not an appropriate tool, which you should be by the way, I found that sanding down uneven bits that I trimmed off with a nail filer was a nice little hack to make sure that there's no humps. I'm taking the stabilizer bars and then wiping off all the lube that is left there, and then I have a clean canvas so I can reapply. I also realized that within the housing there was a lot of lube, so I cleaned those out too. Yeah, there was a lot of lube, guys. Wow. I ended up only removing lube and then trying to spread it out evenly what was left over for the housing and the inserts. I put the inserts and the housing back together, then applied generous amounts of lube on the stabilizer bars at the ends. Make sure that you get the corners as well. Reassembled the stabs, put them back on the plate, and then we're ready to go. A common mod mod is putting foam underneath the PCB board, which I did by tracing out the holes and poking them. By filling up the hollowness of your case, it also absorbs more sound. Then I reassembled the PC board and the plates and started putting the switches in. Something I should have tested, as you will now see shortly, is that if the stabilizers were installed correctly before putting all the switches and keycaps on, but yeah, you'll see. My stabs weren't installed correctly, so the shift keys on either side would get stuck after I hit them enough times, so I had to literally take apart everything and then go in and fix that. Definitely a beginner's mistake on my part, but it was a learning experience. Definitely test everything out before you just put everything together. Very common sense. My biggest gripe was how loud that spacebar is. I looked up on Reddit and it suggested putting some dampening foam underneath inside the spacebar. Overall, it definitely improved, but it's not perfect, so you have tips, let me know, I need them. But we're done! Let's head over to the final desk tour and type test. Overall, I'm really happy with this build, guys. Look at the keyboard, it's so cute, it's so aesthetic, and granted, I feel like the feel of the keyboard is spot on. I'm really happy with the way it sounds too, besides the spacebar. I feel like for linear switches, I could have added a little bit more lube to make them a little bit smoother, and also use those films you put in between switches, but that's for a next project. I'm really excited to switch out the keycaps to create a different feel, and by the way, I'm giving away all 3 of these keycaps to 3 special people, so just leave a comment below about what you're looking forward to this year. I hope y'all enjoyed this video and it was fun. It's kind of a different video for my channel, and be sure to leave a like and comment, subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time.